Prof-It is brought to you by StopToShop.com, your ultimate source for Pokemon singles, tins, boxes, and cards from a variety of other games too. Type in the coupon code PROFIT in caps with a dash, and you'll sweeten the deal with a 10% discount on your full order. If you're looking for cards, make the stop at Stop to Shop.
Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. And one day they decided to go outside. And alright, who am I kidding? I'm not funny this week. Save me theme song.
You're Reggie Rocket with my nonsense and my hopes poke projects. You won't stop till you bob to the top with all the hobbits. Hip with the metagame train, the reigning top kid's at the top of his game, and you can't hit my top list. You want the best tricks? I suggest you profit. You want a mess sprint? I suggest you drop it. Once we started rolling, you know you can't stop it. Let's go and get some lessons from JWittz and Prof-It. Yeah.
Hey everybody, I know it might be getting annoying hearing me talk about these playmats week after week, but for better or for worse, this is the last time you're ever going to have to hear me talk about them because it's the last 2 days you can ever get them. That's right, this Sunday night at around midnight I'm going to close pre-orders and it'll be the last time that you can ever get the teal or pink official Prof-It playmat design. They cost $30 in the United States and Canada, or $40 if you want them shipped internationally, and that includes free shipping. If you're interested in a playmat before Nationals, or just want to help support Prof-It, or just want to help me raise some funds to go to Worlds, definitely check out the pre-order page right here. It'll give you all the instructions you'll need to get a mat, and hopefully you can get one before they're gone forever. And let's move on to Prof-It. Now today, we're going to talk about the top decks that you guys chose from last episode over the course of the next 3 weeks. Now I asked you guys to just leave your input on the decks that you most wanted to see in preparation for Nationals, and the tallies are finally in. I got about 250 responses total from either Facebook or the YouTube comments page, so thanks a ton for your input. By helping me give you guys the best content, I can help you by making the best episodes. So let's check out the tally. In first, by far, are Emboar Variants. This isn't really surprising. I listed it as number 1 as what I consider to be the best deck to look out for in the Heart Gold Soul Silver on format, and it's probably the most hyped deck all around, all over the world. It's also just a really good deck, so I'm not really surprised. And second, also by far, compared to everything else, is Donphan Machamp. Once again, this is the deck that I listed as number 2 in my top 10 for Heart Gold Soul Silver on, so that's not really surprising either. In fact, all 5 of the top 5 decks that I talked about in that episode were all in the top 5 for your guys' voting. So I'm going to do my best to cover all 5 of those decks. There was one 6th deck that got about as many votes as everything from 3rd to 5th, so I'm going to include that too, and that's Kingdramandibuzz. I didn't really see it as being a very viable deck for this format, but since you guys want to hear about it, I'll definitely talk about it. The way we're going to do it is this. The first week, this one right now, I'm going to talk about Emboar. That way you guys have the most time to test what you guys wanted to most hear about. Next week is going to be Donphan Machamp, and then the week after that, the one before Nationals, I'll do a wrap-up of all the other decks and pay particular attention to the top decks that you guys wanted, including Zekrom, Lostgar, Stage 1 combinations, and Kingdramandibuzz. So hopefully I'll cover all the best decks we're going to see for Nationals by the time it is Nationals, and in order to do that, we need to start going. So let's talk about Emboar. I know I've been talking a ton about it over these past few episodes, but it's likely to be the biggest deck for quite some time, so it deserves a lot of talking. It's the deck that I think is going to do the best, it's the deck you guys want the most, so let's talk a little bit more about it. Now, I'll just run over the specs of Emboar in case you guys haven't really been tuning in, but most likely you already know what it does. Emboar is a 150 HP Stage 2 Pokemon whose ability, Inferno Fandango, lets you attach as many fire energy you want to any type of Pokemon as often as you like during your turn. This is probably the best energy acceleration card we've ever gotten in the history of the Pokemon trading card game, and it's extremely good. The strategy behind Emboar is either teaming it up with a Pokemon that can abuse its energy, such as Magnezone or Reshiram, to deal heavy damage really quickly. This strategy has been seen all the time over the Pokemon trading card game, such as Blastoise all the way back in base set, but Emboar is one of the best variants we've ever seen because it lets you attach fire energy to any type of Pokemon. In addition to being able to abuse the heaviest attackers in the format, Emboar also gets to work with the best draw Pokemon in the format, giving it a lot of advantages that no other decks have. It is a little bit slower, being reliant on stage 2s, but because of its energy acceleration, it's extremely consistent and has a great late game. First, let's take a look at the 3 draw Pokemon that you can pair with Emboar to give you a consistent engine. First, let's take a look at NineTails. For those of you guys who played in the Majestic Dawn format, most of you guys should already be familiar with this card. It was paired with Charizard from Arceus, and while Charizard wasn't the best deck in the format, it was at least decent, and NineTails helped it provide some pretty decent draw. The way NineTails works is once during your turn, you can discard a fire energy from your hand to draw 3 cards. With 2 NineTails in your bench, you're discarding 2 energy to draw 6 cards, which is a huge card advantage, and it helps you get through your deck as quickly as possible. Now, having those fire energy in your discard pile can be pretty unfortunate, and while this pairs naturally with Typhlosion, I really don't think Typhlosion is as good as Emboar, and you guys didn't really ask for Typhlosion that much, so we're just going to focus on using NineTails with an Emboar format. With those energy in the discard, you'll either have to use Energy Retrieval, which is a trainer that you can play as often as you like during your turn, or you can play Fisherman to bring those energy back into your hand to either reuse by attaching, or by using his power again. The only other real problem with NineTails is that it hogs up a spot on your bench. If you're trying to build a deck that uses a lot of different kinds of attackers, it isn't really the best for that kind of scenario. However, it's still extremely solid draw, and Emboar is definitely the best deck to abuse it. Next up is Promo Shuckle. Promo Shuckle came out around about a year ago in a blister pack, and because it was a promo card, it's actually becoming pretty valuable. It's at around $12 each, so if you already have one, you should probably hold on to it, and if you're looking to get one, I'd probably get it before that price keeps on going up. Promo Shuckle's Pokebody lets you draw a card for every energy that you attach to it. This doesn't really seem like the best draw power, but using the right combinations, it could be extremely good. For starters, using Emboar means you can attach as many fire energy as you want to Shuckle and draw that many cards for each fire energy attached. Now, using a couple of different combinations, you can pick Shuckle up and reuse all those energies to draw again, or just reattach them. The first is using Unknown Return. This Pokemon, by playing it down, lets you pick up as many energy on your Pokemon back to your hand as you like. You can attach 5, 6, 7, 8 energy to Shuckle, play Unknown Return, pick all those energies up, then reattach them if you want to draw again, or attach them to your Pokemon to start attacking. The other way to pick up the energies is either using the supporter card Seeker, which is a guaranteed pickup, or using Super Scoop Up, which works on a coin flip. Either way, you've got a few options to get all those energies back, and if you have a lot of experience with the engine, you can draw your whole deck in no time. Now, keep in mind, I did say you need to have a lot of experience with it. When I first used Promo Shuckle, I really didn't find it was that good, and it definitely doesn't work in every variant of Emboar, but with a lot of practice, it's definitely really good. I'd try it out if you're not crazy about NineTails or the next card that we're going to talk about, and it's definitely solid. The only problem is, like NineTails, it hogs up a couple spots on the bench, 1 itself, or 2 if you play it with the Unknown Return, and it has fairly low HP, so it's easy to knock out over Reversal, which then shuts out your whole draw engine. However, it's a risky and very powerful engine, and I definitely recommend you at least look at it if you got the time. The third draw power Pokemon is Magnezone. Magnezone's interesting because it's both draw power and attack, which we'll get to later, but for the most part, it's still a really good draw Pokemon. It's a stage 2, which means it's going to take the most time to get out, and therefore it's the slowest of all the draw Pokemon, but being an attacker weighs out most of these bad points. His power, Magnetic Draw, lets you draw cards until you have 6 cards in your hand. This is really good and can help you draw through your whole deck if you build it accordingly. Cards like Juniper aren't really great because you draw 7 cards, and then you have a large hand and can't really drop it down before drawing again with Magnezone. Probably the best way to get rid of your hand is using Junk Arm, which lets you discard 2 other cards from your hand and replay a trainer from your discard pile, which means that you can get rid of a ton of your hand to draw more with Magnetic Draw. Other decent ways to lower your hand size are using Judge, which lets you shuffle your hand back into your deck and then draw 4 cards, or you can use Pokemon Communication, which lets you shuffle a Pokemon from your hand back into your deck, and then you get to take another Pokemon out. By using different cards to limit your hand down, you can build it back up with Magnezone and have some pretty consistent draw. Being a stage 2 does make him slower, but as we'll get to it in the next section, he's a really good attacker too, and definitely one of the most sought after cards in the format right now. The price for Magnezone Prime seems to be at around $40 right now, and if it's as good as that price point demands, he could be the next Luxray Level X of our format. Speaking of Luxray X, let's get to the best attackers that you can use with Emboar in this format. The first, and the one that most people seem to see as the most obvious combo, is using Emboar with Reshiram. Reshiram's blue flare attack for 3 fire energy lets you deal 120 damage, and then you have to discard 2 fire energy attached to Reshiram. Just like NineTails, you'll have to find ways to get these energies from your discard pile back into your hand, but as long as you have something like energy retrieval, you can easily bounce those energies back into your hand for reuse with Emboar the next turn. Dealing an early 120 damage every single turn is really strong, and that makes Reshiram one of the best partners for Emboar. Reshiram also has a great damage-based attack with Outrage, which does 20 damage plus 10 more damage for each damage counter that you have on you. So if your opponent can't knock you out in one hit, you can deal a lot of damage to them for just 2 energy. All in all, Reshiram is definitely a great card from Black and White, and he pairs extremely well with the other Black and White card, Emboar. Next up's the Pokemon that we were just talking about, Magnezone. One of the big strengths for Magnezone is that he can deal probably the heaviest damage of any Pokemon in the format because it's based on how many energies you have attached to your field. For 1 lightning and 1 colorless energy, Lost Burn does 50 damage times the amount of energy that you choose to throw into your Lost Zone. Now, this can be any energy attached to your field, including those to Magnezone or your bench. So you can have only 2 energies attached to your active Pokemon, but you can still throw any energy on your bench into the Lost Zone to deal a ton of damage. Now, being able to do 50 damage for each energy is extremely cost efficient, but the only downside is, once those energies are sent to the Lost Zone, there's no bringing them back. No energy retrieval, no fisherman, there's just no way to get them back. However, Lost Burn is still a really heavy attack, and it's great for taking anywhere from 2 to 4 prizes in a game. Plus, considering the fact that he already provides a great draw engine, using Emboar with Magnezone is one of the most popular combinations, and it's definitely a deck to look out for Nationals. And the third attacker that you can use with Emboar is, well, Emboar. The other Emboar that you can pull in Black and White might disappoint you if you pull it instead of the ability one in a Black and White pack, but that doesn't mean he isn't a great attacker that you can use with Emboar. The other Emboar, which most people call Bad Boar or Attack Boar, we'll just stick with Bad Boar because that's what you guys are all used to, has a pretty strong attack. For 2 fire energy and 2 colorless energy, you can deal 150 damage and then discard all the fire energy attached to you. Now, this might seem like a pretty heavy cost, but if you're running another type of energy, which we'll get to with the next attacker, it really isn't so bad. You're discarding either 3 or 2 fire energy each turn to deal 150 damage. It might not be exactly as cost efficient as Magnezone, but being able to get those energies back from your discard pile means that you can reuse them, instead of having them thrown in the Lost Zone. Using energy retrieval and Fisherman can keep getting these back, and you can use one Emboar to fuel the other and deal a lot of damage really quickly. 150 damage one-shots almost every big Pokemon in the format, and that's definitely not something you want to overlook. Of course, being a Stage 2 Pokemon makes him just as slow as Magnezone, and you don't have the built-in draw, but he's still a really strong attacker, and definitely a good option if you're looking for different ways to deal heavy damage. And lastly is Rayquaza Deoxys Legend. This Pokemon is extremely hyped because it's really cool and can help you get prizes really quickly. His attack, Ozone Buster, for a Lightning, a Colorless, and 2 Fire, deals 150 damage, and then you discard all fire energy attached to him. If you use Lightning Energy for 1 or 2 of his attack cost, you're going to be discarding 3 or 2 fire energy, just like you would be with Bad Boar. However, Rayquaza Deoxys' Pokebody, Space Virus, lets you take 2 prizes for each knockout that you take. Now granted, being a 2 Pokemon legend means that your opponent will take 2 prizes if they knock you out, but being in control of that 2 prize exchange is extremely good. Also, if your opponent can't one-shot Rayquaza Deoxys Legend, that means that you're set up to attack the next turn off an energy retrieval or just getting more energy, meaning that that constant 150 damage and 2 prizes could give you the game in just 3 turns. It's becoming really popular, it's extremely strong, and like Magnezone, it's going up in price. Right now it's costing about $20 for each half of the Rayquaza Deoxys Legend, and if you're running a 1-1 or 2-2 line, it's going to cost from $40 to $80 just to have 2 to 4 cards in your deck. Definitely trade for them if you can, or pick them up before the price keeps on soaring. So having all these different kinds of attackers, which are multiple types, have multiple weaknesses, and can deal at least 120 damage, make Emboar an extremely versatile deck with a lot of different kinds of options. Despite having one of the fastest energy acceleration engines, and having an extremely quick mid to late game as far as dealing out consistent damage, it is a little bit slower than the speed decks in early game. You're going to have to get Pokemon out, evolve them quickly, and consistently draw to get set up. Luckily, using one of those 3 setup Pokemon that I talked about earlier, drawing shouldn't be a huge problem, but you're still going to have to get set up and you're going to be set behind by a prize or two from some of the fastest decks. One of the biggest problems that this deck can face is Pokemon Reversal. Pokemon Reversal on a good coin flip can pull up one of your Pokemon that you're trying to evolve and knock it out, setting you all the way back at square one. Pokemon like Tepig and Magnemite really don't like getting pulled up by Reversal and being knocked out before they can evolve, and if your opponent doesn't have another copy of that Pokemon on the bench, they're not going to be able to set up their Stage 2 Pokemon, and they're going to be shut out of the game. So that's one way to deal with them. Another way to deal with them is by focusing attacks on each of the weaknesses of the main Pokemon that you can attack with. Emboar and Reshiram are weak to water, and Pokemon like Samurott are going to do the most damage to them. Samurott doesn't get one-shot by their attacks, and with just one water energy, he knocks out basically any fire Pokemon in the format with one hit. To deal with Rayquaza Deoxys Legend, colorless Pokemon are the solution. Pokemon like Cinccino and Bouffalant can both knock him on one hit with just one double colorless energy to take those easy 2 prizes. Another option is Zoroark, who can copy his attack for another double colorless energy to deal 150 damage back, and the way the ruling works is you want to discard any energy with your Zoroark after copying Ozone Buster. So all those work too. And dealing with Magnezone is as simple as running a fighting Pokemon. Donphan with 1+ power can knock him out with 1 energy with Earthquake, and Machamp has a field day against Magnezones. By abusing the physical weaknesses that the deck has, you can start knocking out their Pokemon, stopping them from setting up, and start turning the game into a positive for you. However, despite these weaknesses, Emboar has some of the best strengths that this format has to offer. It deals the most consistent, heavy damage, and it gets a knockout almost every single turn once you get everything online, which can be pretty quick once you abuse all those draw Pokemon. Because it has access to all these draw Pokemon, you can consistently draw through your deck without needing to top deck a supporter in the late game. Having this kind of consistency could be extremely huge at Nationals, where you're going 9 to 10 rounds before Top Cut even starts. And finally, Emboar decks have no real huge weakness that puts them at an auto loss. You can make some decks that can tech very well against them, and win around 60 to 65% of the time, but by doing this and tagging yourself against just one kind of deck, you leave yourself open to all the random threats there are throughout the format. So, your best bet is to play something that has around a 50-50% chance of beating it, and chances are, that could just be running Emboar yourself. Practicing the Emboar mirror is going to be huge at Nationals. I'm counting that you're going to see a lot of it all around the tables, and if you're playing it, you're going to have to know how to play against yourself. If you practice a lot with Emboar, and do a lot of work against the mirror, I don't see why you can't do extremely well this upcoming National Championships. It's in my opinion one of the best decks in the format, it's one to look out for, and definitely one to test for yourself. To help you guys get started, if you haven't even tried picking up the deck, to the side of me here are going to be 2 different kinds of skeleton lists that you can work with. Keep in mind, this is a very limited view, and it's just 2 different ways that you can use Emboar, so feel free to explore all the different kinds of combinations of draw Pokemon or attackers if you don't like the 2 I've listed here. These are the 2 most popular variants though. The first variant here is Reshiram, which is the one that you guys have probably heard the most about online. It's the obvious combo, using Emboar with Reshiram and Rayquaza Deoxys Legend to deal heavy damage and take a lot of quick prizes. I've left a ton of open room for you guys in these lists, and they're nowhere near complete, but they should help you start getting things set up if you have no idea how to start making the builds. The second is Magnezone, another really powerful list that a lot of people are talking about. It uses Magnezone, Rayquaza Deoxys Legend, and Emboar to deal as much damage as you can, take quick prizes, and win the game through a bunch of one-hit KOs. In the meantime, I wish you guys the best in testing for this Nationals format, and I hope you enjoyed this deck analysis. It's been a long time, and I might be a little rusty, but just let me know what you guys would like to see in future episodes, and I'll work my hardest to keep on including it. Next week, we've got Donphan Machamp, and the week after that, I'm going to review every other kind of deck that you guys want to hear about. So in the meantime, good luck testing, see you at Nationals, and stay tuned for the next episode of Prof-It. Peace!